Good. Well, we're so excited to have Paradise Valley Estates join us for our 60/60 tour. It's very, very exciting. Since Kevin has been at Paradise Valley Estates, he arrived more or less about the same time I did in my role at LeadingAge California. So I actually feel like I've gotten to know Paradise Valley Estates a little bit better than some of our other communities. So it's very exciting. And we're so excited for the growth and the opportunities that you've had over the past 4, 5, 6 years. So again, thank you for being part of this really exciting 60th anniversary tour. So Kevin, I'm going to turn to you just for a moment. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and also give us a little bit of flavor for Paradise Valley Estates, what it was like in 61, where you might be going.
I've been in the senior living community industry or profession for about 30 years. I was in acute care prior to that. And I work for a number of national developers, Greystone and Retirement Living Services in the past, developing communities. Interestingly enough, I've known Paradise Valley because I knew the developers that created this community. And it was nice, familiar for me, but also the location was perfect because my wife and I came to Napa on a regular basis. One of my favorite things to do is drink wine. And so we were extremely familiar with the area. Matter of fact, stayed one town over in Vacaville when we were here to visit. I was fortunate enough to meet the board in the recruitment process. And in short order, they agreed to bring me on as the CEO in the midst of some major change here at on the campus. The good thing is that I have 2 residents here that probably know more than I do, but the campus was conceived in the 90s, so we weren't here 60 years ago, to be honest with you. It was conceived by a group of retired military officers who would like to have a retirement community of their own here in Northern California. And it's located very close to Travis Air Force Base. It's in the same town, Fairfield. So they were fortunate enough to have enough gumption to contact developers, and a developer from Florida who had experience creating retired military communities came out and worked with the board and created this corporation from scratch. And development started in the mid-90s. And in 1998, the campus opened its doors. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a rich history. And that's what makes the community so exciting and vibrant and not a lot of fun to be around, I guess you would say.
I grew up in Ohio, as you mentioned, and I went to college in Muskingum College, in a small campus, and in New Concord, Ohio, where John Glenn is one of the alums was. And so in 1961, I was on campus. I was along, and in the 60s, I was busy, figuring out where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And I went to Liberia to teach school and met my husband to be there. He actually lived about 200 miles from my hometown. He was from Michigan, and he went to Michigan State, but I kept calling it Michigan. And, for somebody from Ohio, I was a teacher. I taught elementary school, and then I had my own tutoring business later on in Southern California when we lived there. So,
what are you looking forward to as a resident and also still being active, involved in the resident? I don't think you're on the Residents Council. You were the past president, if I recall.
That's correct. Yes.
What are you looking forward to in the next few years?
Well, participating in our activities here. I'm involved with an art group right now that we're working on, bringing some different perspectives of art into the campus. And then we're working with a land use group, and we're also excited to welcome, all our new residents that'll be coming in and new neighbors. So we've been working very, very hard.
I was just going to say that, Sally, you end every paragraph you speak, you end with this endearing smile. It is it's awesome. So that is pretty cool. So whatever whatever you're doing to stay active and stay involved, and it's just you exude joy. It's very cool.
Well, thank you very much. I am really happy. I really mean that. I'm sincere, and I tell anybody that'll listen because I think this is such a great place to be. And people, the people are wonderful, and we have great exchange of ideas, and people here are curious, which is so fantastic. And as difficult as some of the COVID stuff has been, it has just produced a lot of different ideas and things that we can do differently.
Ken, also amazing your involvement. I know, as I mentioned, I met you a few years ago on the board and just really involved. So let's back up a little bit. Where were you in 1961?
1961, I was just finishing high school and getting ready to embark on a 7-year career for a 4-year college course. Along the way, I picked up a very nice student nurse, and we ultimately got married. And so by the end of the 60s, we were on our way to a 30-year career in the Air Force. So we did 1960 to 1970 was a pretty good piece of time in my life, and kind of set the process for what was to follow. Although I can't follow the antics of Sally Gripman and traveling all over the world. She makes my career look boring. She has done everything. We've heard her talk about it at dinner, and enjoyed breaking bread with those people as we do with a lot of people around here. So 60s were a good time for us.
What's changed over this period? I mean, you've seen a lot of changes in your career and in your life. What have been some of the highlights for you?
I was thinking the other day, back in my first days in the Air Force, if you wanted to send a message to somebody across the country, across the world, you had to write it out longhand, give it to the secretary. She'd type it up in this little format, an OCR, take it over to a message center, slide it through a scanner, and it'd go to Europe or it'd go to Japan, and then a day later it would come back. Now we pick up the phone and we say hello and we talk to the person or give them a text. So the communications aspect of what's happened since the 1960s has been just phenomenal. But when I was working my way through college, I worked in a hospital business office and a computer center, and we used the IBM 1620, which is about twice as big as this desk I'm sitting at. Now we can have all that information on an SD card about this big. So the information technology has been the biggest thing that's come across my bow.
Just trying to imagine the Air Force in the 60s, just the evolution of the aviation. Were you involved in that part of it at all, or what roles did you get involved with?
When people ask me what I did when I grew up, I said I was in the Air Force, and the first thing I have to say after that, no, I wasn't a pilot, because a lot of people think if you're an Air Force officer, you're a pilot. Matter of fact, I was in medical administration. I was a clinic administrator, hospital administrator. I was a planner for war plans in the Pacific. I also recruited physicians, dentists, social workers, podiatrists, and for 1 3-year tour. So that didn't have much to do with aviation.
The plan. I mean, obviously, we're talking as we relish the 60/60 tour. We're talking to a lot of people who do have kind of a healthcare bent to a certain extent. What was planning? What did you say? Planning the military. I mean, I don't know what you can't say, but I'm just fascinated. What was that? What was the planning like?
Every particular geographical country of the world has a senior officer who kind of watches out all the military stuff that goes on. Let's say we are planning for the defense of Timbuktu, which might be an Air Force country. When you do that, if you have thousands and thousands of people to put together, you got to worry about their beans, their bullets, their food, and guess what? Their medical care. So my piece of the action was to take these operational plans and build in the medical piece, whether it be air transportable hospitals or air medical evacuation or medical supply and those types of things. This isn't a very fun blooper, but I will tell you, when I was on recruiting duty, one of our jobs was to recruit physicians and dentists and medical students and dental students. There was a scholarship program. I was once working an application. He was in Oregon, and if they're putting his papers together and make all that happen, I said, okay, we need a letter of recommendation from your dental school dean. So he got the letter, and it came in, and it said, okay, Fred Schwartz was a very capable dental student, but it didn't say anything else. And these were competitive scholarships. So I called him up and I said, you better nudge your guy there and tell him that he needs to beef up your letter a little bit. Well, the dental dean called my recruiting headquarters and say, this guy is letting my confidential letters out on the street, and I'm not happy with it. So I got my knickers pretty good on that one. I survived. I was young enough where I survived.
I tell you, I'm a huge history buff, and I'm just trying to imagine like a dinner, and obviously COVID has maybe made it a little bit different, but just all these officers, all these stories, and all these, do the Navy guys sit one way and the Air Force guys sit over here? Is it a big party, or is it? I'm fascinated to the dynamics of it.
What's interesting to me is working with this group of residents. Yes, many of them were military officers, but rank doesn't matter now. And it's very casual here and extremely friendly. It would be hard for you to imagine that the person sitting across from you at one point in their career was a general, right? It happens here frequently that you're sitting across from people that not only did wonderful things in their military career, but even after they retired from the military, many of them became CEOs of major organizations, So they've had multiple careers in their lifetime. And everybody here is just so, I don't know how to say this, friendly, welcoming. When I arrived here in 2017, they put on a continental breakfast outside here and invited me and my wife in. And it was probably the nicest welcome I've ever had in any community. And there wasn't any pomp or circumstance. It was just genuine.
So it's so great to meet both of you and to hear your stories and your commitment really to the community. You've both taken real leadership roles in your community, which is so exciting based on your background, I'm sure, and just your natural influence that you have there. So really terrific. So Ken, let me ask you one last question. We're going to wrap up here in a minute, but tell me what your aspirations are for the next 10 years out. What do you look forward to?
My aspirations for the next 10 years are to be in this house, which is a very nice house, one block off the golf course, right down the street from the dining room, and continuing to focus on this environment. I'm just real happy to be here. When you move in here, it's like you have about 200 BFFs in the first month you're here. And that's because of the residents that are here, both the military folks and the accomplished civilian folks like Sally. So I just want to stay here and continue the march with my lovely wife, and my grandkids are over in Sonoma, so we're in good shape. If you had to be in a CCRC during COVID, this was the one in the world to be.
Yeah.
And everybody on campus agrees. First class staff, first class support. We're happy to be here.